There we go. Get rid of this, that. Pardon me one moment as I work through technical difficulties. All right, welcome to the Isometric webinar. My name is Jarrell Lindsay. Uh, if you have any questions during the course of the webinar, you can put them in the sidebar that should be over here, or maybe it's this direction for you guys, I'm not sure. And yeah, so I'm here to talk to you guys about isometric exercises and muscle control. Now, to me, the two of those things go hand in hand. Isometric training, my isometric journey started when I was in high school. I really badly wanted to wrestle. And yes, Steve, I am currently live, but if my video isn't loading, then I'll see if I can fix that up a bit. Can you see me now? Hopefully that fixed it. This is my first time using Google Hangouts, folks, so I ask that you bear with me. Be a little bit patient. But as I was saying, I made sure that I built up the kind of strength that would be perfect for my wrestling practice. And I knew that, you know, bodybuilders and people like that had their own training style that really catered towards size and getting bulky and whatnot. When you're focused on cutting weight and focused on, you know, uh, trying to build up that kind of strength, then uh, you don't really want to get too bulky. So I had to focus on, you know, getting myself the level of strength that I could get as far as I could go without really increasing my size. So what I had to do was find a way in order to strengthen my muscle, strengthen my nervous system, strengthen my tendons, et cetera, without really bulking myself up. So I went online, started Googling different things, checking it out. And I came across isometrictraining.com, which was the website that Paul, formerly Paul, Batman O'Brien, runs about isometric exercises. Now, I read all those articles, found a lot of interesting stuff that I really didn't know about because I had seen the word isometrics in texts that Bruce Lee had written in the past, and I didn't really know what it meant. But I spoke more with Batman O'Brien about those exercises and read more about it. Found out about old time strongmen. I found out about people like Alexander Zas and the Mighty Atom and the Great Gamma, excuse me, all who used isometric exercises. So I found that that was something that I really wanted to incorporate into my own training. And I asked Batman weekly just different questions about the isometric training that he did. And he would answer weekly, which impressed me, made me feel really good, made it feel like he was genuine and like he was really caring about my personal knowledge. So, uh, throw back to 2013, that's when I started my website, which was formerly muscularstrengthsystem.com and is now leanfunctionalmuscle.com, about isometric exercise, about muscle control, about old time strongman training, because that is the type of training that I go into. I am not a gym rat. I'm not the type of person that you'll see doing 3 sets of 15 at any point in time at any gym. I haven't been inside of a gym in so long that I can't remember. I know that it's been over a year and a half at least. Uh, but I continue to build strength and develop my nervous system, my muscular system, my connective tissues, so that I can improve on the strength that I already have. Because going to the gym, let me tell you why I stopped going for a while. I encountered a trainer, front desk, and a very amicable guy, seemed like a nice guy. So I went over, and like I said, my exercises are a little bit different from gym training. So everybody else was going over to these machines and going over to the free weights. I pulled out a yoga mat and started doing a wrestling bridge on my head and started doing front levers and stuff like that. Now, this was in the middle of me doing a front neck bridge, which is, just balancing on my forehead and my toes. And the trainer came over to me and told me to be very careful doing that exercise because the neck is not supposed to support weight. Neck is not designed to sustain weight. Maybe if there's nothing up here, then you have no weight that the neck needs to support. But supporting your head all day, it's supporting your movements. It helps coordinate the movements of your spine, movements of your head, dictate the movement of your body. Even Charles Atlas would often say how he could tell the strength of a man by looking at the strength of their neck. Do you have the neck of an oxen? Do you have the supple neck of a lion? Or do you have the pencil neck of a trainer in a commercial gym? After that encounter, I really wasn't very fond of gym experiences. So the training that I do is training that I do in this very room. These 4 walls, all the training that I need to do, I do it here. And so far, that's helped me build up a considerable amount of strength. I building myself up as an old-time strongman where I do steel bending, phone book tearing, card tearing, just general old-time strongman feats of strength. And you can see behind me, I have a little wall where I have just a bunch of steel and horseshoes that either I've bent or that other practicing old-time strongmen have sent me. And I'm very proud of that little shrine. But, I do the exercises that help me to build up that level of strength. Those are isometric exercises for me. Now, what are isometric exercises, you may ask? And if you aren't asking, then I'm going to tell you anyways. Isometric exercises are exercise that does not change the length of the muscle when you perform it. Now, an isotonic exercise say that this is a weight, okay? Now, if I'm shoulder pressing this weight, that's an isotonic exercise. This movement is the concentric motion, and this movement is the eccentric motion. Now, if I were just holding the weight here, and my arm was shaking and my muscles are starting to fail, if I was just holding the weight here without changing the length of the muscle, that would be an isometric exercise. The problem that I come across most often in terms of discussing isometric exercises with the people is that isometric exercises are entirely misunderstood in the industry. Let me tell you why. When I talk to most people about isometrics, first thing that comes up is either rehab or Pilates. Talk about doing the plank, and they say, "Oh yes, I love doing plank exercises. It builds me up." Or, "Oh, I really enjoy uh, the rehabilitation exercise I did for my knee that my physical therapist taught me." Um, so there's so much more to isometric exercises than just toning your body and to rehabilitating joints, which is a fantastic use of the exercise, but that's not the be all and all. Isometric exercises have been a part of fitness for thousands of years. Okay, now Alexander Zas was a strongman, 20th century strongman who came out of World War One, out of formerly being a circus strongman and wrestler, to being imprisoned and not being able to do the exercises that he performed in the circus as a strongman and wrestler. So he was losing the strength that he had. And he was chained to a wall in the prison. And using the restraints that held him, he would resist against the exercises daily. Resist against the chains, excuse me, sorry. Until he built up the strength to break them and to bend the bars on his jail cell, turn those into J hooks in order to use that to scale his way out of the prison. If that's the kind of strength that you get from isometric exercises, I'm very okay with that. And I would love to explore that more. The Great Gamma, he's the only truly undefeated wrestler in history in over 5,000 matches. He'd been wrestling from the time that he was 10 years old and retired in his 50s. And he wrestled in over 5,000 matches and won every single one. And this is back when wrestling, had the type of intensity that you don't find necessarily in the WWE. This is the era of Frank Gotch. This is the era of, George Hackenschmidt, of incredible, powerful wrestlers, John Lem and Stanislaus Zbyszko, who could not handle the type of strength that the Great Gamma had. And one of the ways that he would train daily was he would tie a belt around a tree in his yard, and every day he would try to take that tree down. And in a conversation with the mighty Adam, Joseph Greenstein, Joseph asked him, "Did you ever manage to take that tree down?" To which the Great Gamma replied, "No, little one," which he was over 200 pounds as compared to Joseph Greenstein's 140. It was kind of fair to call him little one, but he said, "But after a tree, a man is easy." So let me explain to you a little bit more about these exercises that have built up the kind of legendary strength that allows these men to throw men twice their size, or bend steel bars or horseshoes, break chains, etc., etc. Isometric exercises. This is an example of an isometric exercise. Now, if I take this hand and press down on top of this one, and I take this hand and press upwards against this hand so that they're both resisting each other, okay? That is an isometric exercise. It's different from an isometric hold. That's a yielding isometric exercise. This would be an overcoming isometric exercise. The difference is in the intensity and in the response that it gives to your system. Now, yielding isometric, if I just held this pen and say it was a very heavy weight, and I held it with all my might, until the weight started dropping, and then I just had to let it go. That would be a yielding isometric exercise, and that's what most people attribute to isometric training. Now, that does help with a bit with the size, because the yielding isometric couples an eccentric component that really does help blood flow into the muscle very quickly. It is not the most optimal for strength building. The time under tension aspect helps you to develop that sense of muscle control. It helps you to really build yourself up to an incredible amount of fitness. But what I've found to be the best style of isometric exercise for building up strength, for building up muscle control, etc., is an overcoming isometric exercise where you're trying to use your strength to overcome the force of another object. And, because the tension produced does not exceed the resistance of the exercise, it doesn't exceed the resistance of the object, then you can put as much force into it as you would like. It won't move, which will make it a maximal tension exercise, which will make it a rather safe exercise, and which will build incredible strength, because when you're putting all of that force into your object, something is happening that's called asynchronous motor unit summation. Excuse me. What that means is that when you're performing a contraction, your motor units are what controls which of your muscle fibers will contract. One motor unit, one neuron, could control, from 100 or 50 muscle fibers in more intricate, complex muscles, to 1,000 to 2,000 muscle fibers in bigger muscle groups that will require more strength and less complex movement. The way that the muscle units will contract them is that they will rotate, so that one muscle motor unit is contracting a group of muscle fibers and the other is relaxing. And that once that motor unit uses up all of its energy stores, the other motor unit activates in order to allow that motor unit to relax. Now, if you're doing an isometric contraction, none of the motor units have a chance to relax because all of them are being activated at once. And you're doing that for a period of 7 to 12 seconds. It really doesn't take longer than that for all the energy stores in your muscle to be just completely depleted. And your body does not like it when you just lose that kind of strength outright. So what it's going to do is incredibly build up your strength and build up your muscle fibers. And this was tested by Hedinger and Mueller two German scientists in 1954 who showed that one 7-second isometric contraction per week in over 1,000 clinical studies, independent studies that they did with people, increased their strength 5 to 15%. And that if they did a daily contraction of 7 seconds of isometric training, they could increase their strength 72% in 46 weeks. And that is in 1954. There was a study done in 2006 that showed that 10 7-second contractions that just from one routine was done on different trainees had shown on average a 9.3 pound increase in muscle tissue. And Batman O'Brien himself has done case studies on how isometric training has helped him to, for instance, cut 14 pounds of fat in 7 days. Not drop 14 pounds of weight, cut 14 pounds of body fat in 7 days. To build 30 pounds of muscle in a matter of 7 weeks. And it goes on and on and on because there are so many uses of isometric exercises. And understanding the uses of those isometric exercises comes from two foundations. One, understanding the importance of breath and understanding the importance of muscle control. My favorite strongman, and I feel like I probably shouldn't say favorite because I do love so many strongmen. I love Alexander Zass and what he represents and the feats that he was able to do. I love the Mighty Atom and the culture that he created in the United States for me to be a performing old-time strongman. I love, the Great Gamma and all that he was able to do, and Hackenschmidt and Herman Gorner and people like that. My personal favorite strongman was a man who was about 5'4" and who weighed no more than 145 pounds. And he performs some of the strongest feats of strength that a human being can manage at his size, and develop the strength to do all of these things primarily without weight training, by doing muscle control, by doing body weight exercises. The man's name is Maxick, Maxick. Maxick talked about the importance of having control over your muscle. One of the things that he said about muscle control was that control teaches you where to pull and where to press, using the various salient points of the bone as fulcra and the muscles and the joints as levers. What that means is that it helps to build strength using your own body as the tool for building that strength, and it helps to make the tendons in your body more supple, which was actually one of the things that was shown in a study done by PubMed on the quadriceps with isometric training, and how the quadricep muscle was strengthened from the isometric exercise. But what was most interesting about the study was that the tendon of the quadricep, had actually increased in thickness from the isometric training, which is something that you don't generally find happens with concentric or eccentric training. More often than not, you will find bicep or tendon tear as opposed to building that up. And there are ways that you can build up the tendons with that type of training, with partial lifts and with support lifts. Personally, I find that isometric exercises do that the best, but I digress. Muscle control. When you're doing an isometric contraction, you don't want to just push down with this arm and push up with this arm. And when you're pushing with either arm, you don't want to just that's not going to build you any type of strength. It's not even going to look like it will. So there's really no point in trying to put in that type of effort. You're going to want to put as much force into it as you can. You want each limb, shaking. You want maximal contraction when you put it into that exercise. With that, you want to build up your ability to maximally contract your muscles. Voluntary contraction is how you do that. And voluntary contraction is literally just flexing. You flex a muscle, it contracts. So you want to flex your muscle as you're performing the contraction. Because if you're just putting it in relaxed, it will build a lot of strength, but it won't really go towards your muscle control unless you're flexing the muscle and then putting in the type of force that it needs. Doing that, coupled with various isometric exercises, can expand your fitness so far beyond just holding a weight and letting it drop, or just doing a martial arts stance until you can't hold the stance anymore. There's so much more to isometric training once you understand the muscle control aspects, because with muscle control, you can do dynamic tension as well, which would be flexing the muscles through movement. Now, for instance, if I'm throwing a punch, then throwing that punch won't have as much of a muscle building aspect because, I'm just throwing a punch. But if I'm flexing my tricep and I'm flexing my lat, then I'm flexing my shoulder, and then I'm flexing my upper pecs as I'm throwing the punch, and then I'm flexing them as I'm coming back with the punch. That will build strength in all of those muscles, and it will also further increase the muscle mind connection. Isometric exercises and muscle control help with the myelination of the central nervous system, so that the signals that your brain sends out to your muscles will get there quicker, more efficiency with more strength, because the myelin sheath that helps to insulate your nerves and helps to increase the speed of signal transmission will thicken from your isometric training, from your muscle control training. So naturally, that will help to increase speed, that will help to increase strength, power, strength of muscle contraction, also power. And, as you're also increasing the strength of your tendons, that will help to increase the strength of your overall body. Because, a kangaroo actually has the speed, if I'm not mistaken, to run a 100-meter race in 4 seconds. It can travel 100 meters in 4 seconds. The reason I can do that is because of the power of its tendons. It doesn't just jump really fast. The strength of its tendons allows it to take long strides, powerful strides that will push it forward. And actually, if it took shorter jumps, that would waste the elastic strength of their tendons and wouldn't allow it to have as much speed as if, you were taking a rubber band and stretching it this much and it flicks a little bit, and stretch it this much and flick it a little bit. If you just took the rubber band and stretched it all the way out, boom, it would shoot across the room. That's the training that you get with isometric exercises. Now with breathing. Breathing. One of the most vital functions that your body performs. And that's one of the topics that I hear the least discussed in fitness training. The strength of your body can really be built and developed by the strength of your breath. just breathing will help to build that up so much, because you find that when you're running, okay, your muscles, they're operating quickly and whatnot, but your muscles aren't really doing that much different than they might be in a weight room. That if you were taking weights and moving them really fast, or if you were taking really heavy weights and putting a lot of tension into it and whatnot, your muscles are going to have an incredible amount of stress put on them. The reason that people can have endurance in the weight room a lot of times and lack that endurance outside is, well, for one, sometimes in the weight room, people will not train an entire system. They'll simply train body parts to do isolation training, and coordinating the nervous strengths for full body movement will require that full body training. But second thing is the breathing. You're running and you get that burning in your chest and that tired feeling. That, yes, your lungs burning, but also your diaphragm fatiguing. And the strength of your diaphragm can increase because your diaphragm is made up of skeletal muscle, just like your bicep, your forearm, your shoulder, any other muscle that you have in your body is skeletal muscle, so is your diaphragm. So it stands that you can train the strength of your diaphragm like you can train the strength of any other muscle in your body. And this is something that I talk about in the isometric breathing exercise video that I do on my YouTube channel, Jarrell Lindsay. And it's something that Batman O'Brien has spoken about, Peter Ragnar, Bud Jeffries. A lot of these people will discuss the importance of breathing training for building up that type of strength. So, isometric exercise, breathing, muscle control. Those three things by themselves can bring you to a phenomenal, legendary level of strength if you will train them, if you know how to train them, and if you will train them consistently. I teach people how to do those three things. And the goal of me teaching people how to train isometrics, how to train muscle control, how to train breathing, is for me to not have to train them. My goal in having a client is for me to lose a client, because I want to teach you how to do all of those things by yourself. I want to teach you autonomy, because my body operates different from Bud Jeffries' body, operates different from Mike Bruce's body, operates different from Michael Jai White's body, The Rock, etc., etc., etc. We all have our own bodies, and we know our bodies better than most others know our bodies, because we've had our bodies for however long we've been alive. So I want to show you that your body is a tool that you can use for incredible fitness. I want to show you how to use the tool, and that way you will have the knowledge that is required to just build up your own strength for developing that tool, for building up your power, for building up your overall sense of autonomy. And then I can go my path, you can go your path, you can spread the things that I've taught you, you can completely discard them. Either way, you spent your money, so you can do whatever you want with the advice that I give you. You can do absolutely nothing with the advice that I give you. But I'm giving it to you so that you can do the things that you want to be able to do, you want to have the strength to do by yourself. So, make sure that I've covered everything that I wanted to cover here. Okay, yes. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Maxick. Now, like I said, Maxick was about 5'4". He was 145 pounds maximum. Maxick had a strongman friend named Tromp Van de Gelen, about 215 pounds. He was an incredible strongman at his time as well. One of the things that Maxick did was overhead lifting. A lot of strong men, a lot of old time strong men used to do overhead lifts in order to develop their strength. You will not really have heard of a strong man that didn't train on lifting weights overhead if they trained weightlifting at all. So Maxick would do this strength feat where he would take a mug and he would fill it up with beer. And my kind of strength feat. He would take Tromp Van de Gelen in one arm and he would press him 215 pounds overhead, bring him back to shoulder height, and then keep one arm pressing him without spilling a single drop of beer. I don't have that kind of strength. I would love to have that type of strength. But that's the type of strength that muscle control, that isometric exercises can build up. And that's not just old time. That's not just something that's like, oh, well, this guy had that however many years ago, you know, maybe he did this or maybe he took steroids or no, that's not how it is, because there are strongmen today who can do truly incredible feats of strength, like Dennis Rogers, who's about 5'6", also 145, 150. Held back two Cessnas from taking off, held off Harley Davidson with just his grip strength from driving away. He can bend wrenches. He can lift people up to shoulder height and just have them laying across his arms while he tears a deck of cards in half. You know, Chris Ryder can take horseshoes and just wrench them open, be, you know, mule shoes, draft size horseshoes. This isn't just a relic of the past. These are feats that are being performed today. And that's the type of thing that can be built up, the type of strength you can build up with isometric exercises, the type of strength that I'm starting to and I'm going to continue building up with isometric exercises with muscle control, with my breathing training. So for those of you who are watching this this webinar here, I do want to share a few links with you if I can. Maybe I can't because for whatever reason it says that this feature is disabled. So I'm gonna try and fix that. Bear with me, folks. I'm kind of a caveman, so I don't really know. Like I said, this is my first time using this technology. Bruh, come on now. And if you have any questions in this time, feel free to ask them. All right, it's not looking like I'm going to be able to share the links here, but if you follow my page on Facebook, Strength is More Than Muscle, I'm going to put out a couple of files that you can download, that you can check out and read in terms of isometric training, in terms of muscle control and breathing. One is going to be the philosophy, science, and practice of mech salting. And you'll see that with the system that Maxick created in the 1920s, he was so ahead of his time. He understood physiology, he understood the process of building strength on a fundamental level, and not just of muscle strength. He understood it, building nervous strength, building tendon strength, building the whole strength of your body using the power of the mind. Because your muscles are controlled by your nervous system. Your nervous system is controlled by your mind. The stronger that you have a link to your muscles and a link to your nervous system, the stronger your link to your true overall strength is, because isometric exercises will help you to get closer to your absolute strength. Absolute strength is the full amount of strength that our muscles can produce. If we just had no limiters in our bodies, and just put out as much strength as we possibly could, that would be our absolute strength. And we don't do that because that would probably injure us, dislocate bones and joints and stuff. Not really favorable. So that's why we have our maximum voluntary contraction strength, which is how much strength we can voluntarily put into an exercise. Our maximum voluntary strength is lower than our absolute strength. Usually it's like 30 to 60%. 30 for, average person, and 60% for someone who generally trains. Isometric exercises can bring you closer to 100% of using your absolute strength, because it will truly, thoroughly build up the strength of your nervous system contractions and building up the strength of your muscles. And it'll make your muscles bigger, stronger. Nice little bonus. So, all right, so I'm going to be putting the files on the Strength as More Than Muscle page right about now here. Get the philosophy PSP Maxick. Alrighty then. All right, if you check on the group right about now, you should be able to see this file. I'll say muscle control Maxick. You can check that out and see the strength that you build from that. If you have any questions about isometric training, about muscle control, about breathing exercises, about dynamic tension, about any of those things, feel free to ask me. You can email me forthepowerseekers@gmail.com. You can visit my website, leanfunctionalmuscle.com. You can check out my Facebook group, Lean Functional Muscle. You could subscribe to me on YouTube and ask me there. My channel, Jarrell Lindsay, JarellLindsey. Or you can message me on Facebook. My Facebook page is public, and it's connected as well to my Facebook group, my forum that I use to communicate with a lot of the people that I train. Strength is more than muscle. Okay. So I hope that this has been informative. I hope to do a few more sometime in the future. I will narrow down different topics, breaking down muscle control, breaking down different aspects of isometrics, perhaps yielding isometrics or compound isometrics. I'll break down their goals, using isometrics for mass building, using isometrics for weight loss, using isometrics for overall strength. Same thing with dynamic tension, using dynamic tension bodyweight exercises in order to build up strength for bodyweight feats, in order to strengthen muscle memory, the mind-muscle connection, using dynamic tension for mass gaining as well, for the eccentric components and blood flow of those exercises. Got a lot of topics that I can hopefully cover in terms of all of the knowledge that I've gotten. And because I've had that knowledge so graciously shared with me, I would love to share it with you. If you have any questions as well about old time strongman training, about how to start bending things like those, uh, these nails, stuff like that, feel free to reach out to me on any of those groups that I mentioned beforehand. So, like I said, I hope that you enjoyed this webinar. It should be available on YouTube for those of you who did not have the opportunity to watch it now. And I hope that you all have incredibly happy training. All right. Jarrell Lindsay, signing off. Have a good one, folks.